basically, today we're not going to play the video, girls. So for those who have been following us on Ghosty Talk Show, who are watching us every day, so tomorrow we have Reality 7. They're going to join us tomorrow at Nkositalkshows Talk Show. We're going to be talking about their music journey and how God is using them to actually serve the community. Basically, for those who love music, who have their children who wants to get into music industry, and just come and join us. These guys, they've been going since 1990, is it 1992 or 1999? I can't remember. And they've done it all. They are big in South Africa, and they will be joining us tomorrow, and we'll be talking about, we'll be having fun. You just come and join us. If you have a dream, you know that you have a dream, you're stuck, so maybe it will help you. And there are some children basically who just want to get into entertainment industry, and I was into entertainment industry, and the entertainment industry can be mean industry, can be a mean industry if you basically not prepared. So if you have your children, you can come and ask them questions, how they made it to be where they are today. So thank you so much, guys. I'm gonna come over to you, Carolanne. Please introduce yourself to our audience.
Hello, yes, and good afternoon, good evening, and good morning, wherever you are in the world. Here in London, it's afternoon, and I expect you've heard so often now the phrase unmute yourself, unmute yourself. Well, I'm helping, right, yeah, unmute, unblock that voice. And as the writing facilitator, what I do is I support women in becoming more productive with their writing. But more importantly, they experience free-flowing writing. They experience an unlocking of the writer within, unmuting their story and getting it written, getting their book written, because you cannot publish what isn't written. And all of this has come about through my own journey of unlocking the writer within me. So I'm Carolanne, the writing facilitator, unlocking the writer within and helping you unmute your story. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Carolanne. Over to you, Amanda. Please introduce yourself to our audience.
Hi, my name is Amanda Cottrell. I'm coming to you from Calgary, Alberta, Canada. So it's bright and early morning here. And it's warmer this week than it was last week. We're not in the like minus 30s. So it's a heat wave. It's like -5. I am the founder of Artfulness and Creativity. I write children's books, and I help inspire people to reach their own creative capacities. And I also am a teacher.
So thank you so much, Amanda. So our topic today is how to set boundaries for healthier you, which is a very, very important topic to every person, every living human being, basically. So Amanda, what does the topic mean? When someone who will be watching right now will be saying, I don't know the meaning. So can you tell the audience, what does it mean to set boundaries for your healthier you?
Well, setting boundaries really means that you make sure that you're healthy first. So when I actually wrote a children's book called I'm Empathetic, and in the book, it talks about setting boundaries. Even when you're showing empathy to others and you're caring for others, you still need to make sure that you have those boundaries to make sure that you're not giving too much of yourself to someone else. So in order to, while you can be empathetic and caring and compassionate, you still need to make sure that you take care of your own self first, because you can't give from an empty cup. So your cup has to be full as well in order to be able to give caring and compassion and empathy to others as well. So setting boundaries really means to say to yourself, is this healthy for me? And if it's not, then I need to set a boundary for it in order to make sure that this situation is still healthy for me.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Amanda. Over to you, Carolanne. What is your own opinion on this one? How to set boundaries for healthier you?
Well, first of all, you need to understand what a boundary is, because it may be that you think, okay, you see a boundary, and in my mind, when I hear that word, I automatically think of a fence or some physical boundary, you know, like a line of trees. To me, that's a boundary. And in terms of personal boundary, it's similar. It's some point at which you say that's far enough to somebody to come, you know, you've come close enough. It's some guideline, it's some rules by which you feel safe. And it's being able to understand what those boundaries are. Because if you actually don't understand what your boundaries are, you can't actually enforce them. And you also need to be able to identify, well, what boundaries are you unconsciously setting? You know, what is it that you're allowing people to do that actually is uncomfortable for you? And those are very often learnt boundaries. As a child, you learn them, you pick them up from other people, you see how they have been working or operating, and you take them on for yourself. And they're not necessarily healthy for you because they're not necessarily keeping you safe or helping you to feel comfortable. Because a boundary is about helping you to feel safe and comfortable within yourself. And when you feel safe and comfortable, that's when you can feel healthy. You can create a more healthier you. So
thank you
yeah,
so
that's
much, Carolanne. Boundaries are important in life. For me, the boundaries that were set by my parents, they actually, some of them helped me to actually be the person that I am today. There were boundaries in my family that when I go outside, if I hear people talk, I cannot bring that conversation into my family. And I cannot take that conversation to somebody else because that conversation is not mine. Or if somebody comes and tell me something, I cannot take it to the third person. That thing that has been shared with me, it has to stay with me. I have to ask myself, if I was to share whatever they were sharing with me, how would that make me feel if I was in their shoes? So that's what my grandmother, because I was raised by my grandparents. My parents always at work, although they were there, but they were always working. So I spent time with my grandparents. So there were boundaries in our relationship that don't bring gossip into the house. When you hear someone comes to you and tell you something, Nomsa, I heard someone talking about you, ask them, what part did they play? If they're telling you to fix the problem, you will know. So before you get involved, ask them what part, because when somebody plays a film, there's a part that they play. So ask, what part did you play? What made them feel compelled to tell you this about me? So what part did you play? So then you'll find out whether they are telling you to cause trouble or they are telling you to actually build both of you, your relationship. So you know. So those were the things that I've learned when I was growing up. So if somebody like Nkositalkshows, and someone comes to me and say, Nomsa, maybe Amanda was talking about you, I just have to say, okay, what part did you play? What was your part in that? So thank you so much. Amanda, Carolanne mentioned that for you to set boundaries, you have to identify those boundaries. You have to actually sit down. So can you tell us how have you set up your boundaries? Because Carolanne has her own boundaries that she has set up in place. And for you as a person, how have you set up your boundaries? Because the way you set up your boundaries, it might help somebody who is listening.
Well, I think you really have to set boundaries based on what you value. So a number of years ago, I had a coworker who was very, very, her emotions would go from one end of the extreme to the other, and we were friends. But that friendship caused me a lot of anxiety. And so I finally had to say, like, this friendship isn't healthy for me anymore. I care about you. I want you to be happy and healthy, but this is not healthy for me because I'm constantly worried about when's the next time you're going to blow up, right? So we really have to look at each situation and say, and feel it in our bodies, like what is causing us anxiety or what is causing us to mistrust ourselves in every relationship. So it can be friendships, it can be with family members, it can be with a romantic partner. And you really have to think about what is that am I okay with, and what is it that I'm not? So a boundary that I've had to set for my family is that I don't want people drinking around my daughter, not like having a glass of wine, but like drinking excessively around my daughter. So that's a really clear boundary I have. And if anybody starts to drink too much around her, I just leave. And so we just go, okay, it's time to go. And we leave because I want to model something completely different for my daughter than what I was modeled as a child. And so one of my boundaries is that I don't care if you drink or not. I don't drink, but my boundary really is don't drink excessively around my daughter, and really like don't drink around her just as a courtesy to me is a more positive space for me to be in. And so when people do break that boundary for me, I just have to say, I'm sorry, but I can't be part of this situation anymore. And I set those really clear boundaries for that. And I just will say, oh, we're just not coming, and it's really not a demand. It's more of a like, this is my boundary. And people who don't like boundaries are going to push back when you do start to set boundaries. I've had to work with my psychologist a whole bunch on setting boundaries. And she has talked with me and talked me through being able to set a boundary and how people who are not at that place where they can contemplate what a boundary actually is, how they will react and how they will lash back out. But you still have to be very, very strong and say, no, this is what is most healthy for me. And I'm sorry that you feel the way that you do, but this is what is most healthy for me. And so that is the path I am going to take. And you have to be prepared for people to not be happy with your boundaries, especially when it comes to family and friends and relationships, because when you set boundaries, especially you're setting a boundary because it is something that's making you in your body feel anxious or unhappy. And so when you get the strength to set that boundary, people are going to push back. And you have to be really, really strong in order to maintain those boundaries with them.
Thank you so much, Amanda. I like when you say you don't like people drinking in front of your child, because I think as a parent, for me, I always say, my daughter came back on Christmas Day, on New Year's Day, and it was like, my dad gave me some champagne and stuff. And I said to her, listen, just because you are 14, it doesn't mean that we have to introduce you to alcohol. It actually has to be a decision. I said to her, everything is a choice. Why don't you wait? I said to her, why don't you wait until you are older and then make a decision whether you want to drink or you don't want to drink? Because in a British culture, apparently you have to take your child to a pub. But at that moment, what parents don't understand is a child has not made a choice. You are making a choice to that child. You are saying, this is your character. My parents drank, my mom drinks wine, my father drinks wine. But there was a choice that I was given, that if you feel that you want to drink when you're older, when you are mature, it's got to be your choice. So when I grew up and then I started going out to clubs, and I look at my friends, they get drunk, and I was like, this is not the character that I want to be. So I would just go out with my friends. I choose not to drink. I have never drank alcohol. I've never smoked. So I think I actually admire you as a parent, giving your child that choice to say, you can do this when you are older, when you have a choice that if it feels right, go for it. If it doesn't feel right, go for it. So I admire parents who are like that, who let children make their own decisions. So when I told my daughter that, she was like, oh, actually, you make a point. So, so Carolanne, what, based on, I like to hear your views on this one. Based on what, I would love to ask you different questions, but it's nice to have a different views when someone goes deep. Based on what Amanda has just said, what do you think about the parents? Do you think it's okay for parents to introduce kids to alcohol, or is it okay for just for parents to let children make their own decision and own choices?
Interesting question. I was just thinking that actually, I did sort of follow on with what my own parents did, and they allowed us just to try drink, so that we would know what it tastes like. We could make our minds whether we liked it or not, and with a view that actually we wouldn't go out behind their back trying it out, or being stupid about it, and that we could then make our own minds up later. And I actually did the same with my own children. We just let them, my husband at the time, we said, well, we let them try bits of alcohol, maybe a glass of wine or something, and so that they wouldn't then go out experimenting so much. And when they were older, that was up to them, so they had that choice. And for me, I think that's it felt the right thing to do at the time. And I guess it was modeled from my own parents. That was the boundaries they set, and for me that seemed perfect, and I carried on with that. And interestingly enough, my own children have just gone their own way with drinking or not drinking. I actually, I used to drink, but not excessively. And one time I did go over the top, and I was so ill, but that was actually at a funeral. So it's like something just over. But other than that, I got to know my own limit, and I just drank to enjoy it, And even now, I haven't drunk in years, because I don't actually feel the need. Now and again, it's nice just to have a glass of something, but water is sufficient for me, and I think it's being able to be comfortable with coming to that decision. And if you go out with a group of friends, actually saying, I'm not drinking, I just have some fruit juice, and I'm quite comfortable just to order a soft drink. I don't need to order alcohol. So it's introducing things to your children, and then just letting them make their own minds up. The one thing that popped into my mind when you were talking was around smoking. And I think it comes down to society at the time you're growing up as well, because when I was growing up, smoking was the done thing, smoke everywhere. So I grew up with, my parents did smoke when we were very young, but then they stopped. But wherever we went, there was smoke, people were smoking. And so my own home, when I got married and that we had friends, my husband, then he smoked. So we had friends that smoked, but it never, I always suffered physically. I used to get sore throat. I never smoked myself. I could never see the sense of taking smoke into lungs that were meant for, to take in oxygen. It has never seemed, I don't know, what's the word? I can't think of the word, but it's just seemed crazy to me that you would want to do that to yourself. But then I guess within that, I was a passive smoker because I was around people that smoked. So I was taking it in, but it was not comfortable. I didn't enjoy it. My body reacted to it. And I would often end up with a sore throat for a few days. And fortunately, my ex-husband, he stopped smoking. So then our house became a smoke-free zone and people started to abide by that. And of course, as society has moved on now, it is more common to say, you don't smoke in certain places. And I remember a few years ago being in someone's car and he asked me if it was okay for him to smoke. And I actually said, no, please don't. I was like, yes, because I said, I can't, I physically, it impacts me. And I would prefer that you didn't. And he didn't. So again, it's recognizing these boundaries and being able to say, no, it doesn't do me any good and I prefer that you wouldn't. So, yeah.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Carol. And I remember I tried the beer once, and because I see my friends, they're all having fun, and I was like, there must be something really exciting about this. And then I tested it. I was like, this tastes disgusting. So what? What is so nice about this is, when you make your own choice, you can actually say, okay, this was my choice. So I agree with you when you say like you actually ask your children to test and make a decision. I have a friend actually, her children, she goes out with her children, they're in their 20s, early 20s. So she goes out clubbing with her children. So when I ask her why she goes out, she says, instead of me telling them instead of me when they turn to the age where they can go clubbing, instead of me telling them they can't, so I had a choice to say, actually, if they allow me, I can come with them so I can show them the world of being safe and drinking being safe. And so she was teaching them to be safe, and then now they go out on their own, which is, I think, as a parent, is a good idea, because if you, like your point, if you say to the kids you can't do this, children wanna experience it. Why is our parents saying we can't do this? So that's why I made it clear to my daughter that whatever you do in life, make sure it's a choice, and not a choice that is been given by me, not a choice that has been given by your dad or your friends. You have to make your own choice and say, I'm gonna do this. And you have to have a big reason why you want to do this. If you feel it's making you happy, you go for it. You go for what you think is right for you. So that is good. I used to think, I used to tell her she can be who she wants to be, but I changed that wording. She can't be who she wants to be, because her purpose, basically, she has to work towards her talent and her purpose. So Amanda, is there any examples of healthy boundaries? Amanda, you're muted.
I was trying to add on to what the smoking boundary was with Carolanne, but obviously I was muted. But that's a perfect example of setting a boundary, was to say, like, you cannot smoke in my car, and that's something that's always been a boundary for me. has been, you're never allowed to smoke in my car, but also in my house as well. And so too, when my daughter was born, I had family members who smoked, and I said I had to set a very clear boundary with them, and I sent them a package of research and a letter, and I said, this is my boundary. You are allowed to see the baby only if these boundaries are met. And that did not go over well with them, but I still stuck to my boundaries because I was doing what was most healthy for my child. And so I had done a ton of research on secondhand smoke. I had done a ton of research on third-hand smoke and how babies especially can be affected by third-hand smoke, because third-hand smoke is on your clothing, it's on your skin, it's in your breath, even after you finish smoking like hours ago. And so my boundary with them was, you can come and see the baby, but you must have showered, brush your teeth, and put on clean clothes that you've not smoked in. And then you may come over and see her. Otherwise, you cannot see her. And so that did not go over well with the people in my family who smoked, but it was the healthiest thing I could choose for my child, because I didn't want her exposed to secondhand or thirdhand smoke, or obviously firsthand smoke, but she's not old enough for that yet either. But it is really hard to set a boundary like that, especially when research has changed and society has changed. And you want to set those clear boundaries and those clear expectations so that people are healthy around your child or around your family. And yet people who are not willing to look at the research, or who are not willing to take that step to be consciously aware of changing, they just look at those as demands. And they're not demands. They're a clear, healthy boundary for the person. And whether that's your boundary, but everybody's boundaries can be different too. So if you're a smoker and you like to smoke, that is totally fine if you let people smoke in your house, but that's not okay with me. And that is, I'm like Carolanne as well, where it really affects me. I'm super allergic to it. And it makes me stuffy, it makes me have a sore throat, it makes me feel really exhausted whenever I'm around it. So it really is something where I had to set a very, very clear boundary of what I was okay with and what I was not okay with. And that's something that took a long time, because as growing up, I used to like scream at my family members who were smoking with me in the car and being like, this is not okay, even though I was a child. But as an adult, I'm allowed to set those clear boundaries. And sometimes people are too scared to set the boundaries because they're afraid of how the other people will react. But what you're doing when you're not setting the boundaries is you're taking away from yourself and taking away from your own healing.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Amanda. With regard to smoke, I think it makes sense, because you don't want the children to be exposed to all sorts of things. I agree with you. I think my in-laws, few of them, they do smoke, but they know that they can't smoke around children. So thank God I didn't have to set up the boundaries. I have in-laws that knows how to make a decision when it comes to the children, because they have kids themselves. So they know how it feels to actually expose your child to things like that. So when they smoke, they make sure they smoke at home or when they go out having fun. So thank you so much. Carolanne, is there anything you would like to add on this one?
In what respect add on this one?
Let's go to how to set healthy boundaries in relationships. So when I'm talking about relationships, I'm not just talking about intimacy relationships. I'm talking about relationships as a whole, like family relationships or intimacy relationships. So you can pick whatever you want to pick.
I think with the relationships in anything really, because it's the relationship you have with yourself which is most important. because the relationship that you have with yourself is what then sets up how your relationships are with other people. So actually being able to set up your boundaries, you need to be able to go inside and really tune into what you're comfortable with, what are you feeling, at that moment. How is it emotionally impacting you? And speak up from that place. If it's not feeling comfortable, then say something or stop. But very often we override our own emotions and how we're feeling. We seem to brush them aside, which then doesn't create healthy boundaries, because you're already setting up that boundary that's like this, that somebody can just push over, because you're doing it to yourself. So really recognize when something is emotionally not feeling comfortable for you, and sit with that and go, okay, so what is here? Where is this feeling? What is this feeling? What is this feeling telling me? And what is it I need to speak out? What is the boundary that has attempted to be disregarded here? And get clear on what is that boundary, and then speak it out and set it back up. Put those stakes in the ground, and build that boundary up again. Or just tune into your thoughts. What are your thoughts? Because sometimes you can be saying to yourself, I don't like this. This doesn't, I don't think this is right. But then you ignore it. For whatever reason, you decide to ignore it. So you're ignoring your own inner voice, your own inner wisdom, which is saying, just stop a moment here. Stop. Really get clear on what is happening. What's being said, what are you thinking, and what needs to be said. Because again, boundaries are being disregarded, and it is creating that regard for your own boundary that has other people then be able to have that regard for it as well. Maybe if you're not sure how to set your own boundary, hear about your values. That's a key one. What are your values? Just sit down maybe one day and say, well, what's important to me? And then what else is important to me? And just list it all out and really get clear on what is important to you, because those are your values. And then you can come from there and then say, well, am I honoring my values, or am I disregarding them? And so just keep tuning into that and going, okay, does this sit with my values? And if it doesn't, again, speak out, feel your power inside. And if there's something that's stopping you from speaking out, work with that. Find your voice, unmute your voice, because at some point as a child, you were probably muted, you were probably disregarded, and therefore feel that you haven't got a voice and you cannot speak up. And you need to heal that inner child and allow her to become unmuted so that you can then speak up and hold those boundaries.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Carol. And I think it is very, very important to actually have your own voice in relationships, and also have a clear communication with people, how you want to be treated your values and your principles. I have principles that I've put in place myself based on the Bible, because if you want to, God says, if you want to enter my kingdom, you have to obey my principles. So for me, I don't have rules, I have principles. I put principles in place that I don't want to put myself in situation, in their characters of people that I get aware of. And if someone comes to my life, and some people, they enter your life and they judge you, or they will just come, basically they're not basically the way they behave is not what is not, it doesn't go with your values or your beliefs. So you have to be clear. As long as you are hurting, you're not hurting someone, you have to explain it without blaming, because some people, what they do is they end up blaming instead of explaining. So for me, I explain to people that this is what, or sometimes if a friend says to me, Nomsa, let's go to the movies. If I don't want to go to the movies, Nomsa doesn't want to go to the movies. Do I need to apologize for it, or do I need to explain? No, I don't. Because I believe that an authenticity character, if I have a friend like Nkositalkshows, if Amanda or you, carolanne, say, Nomsa, I have family problems and I don't think I can make it today. If you are true to me and you are true to yourself, you don't need to explain to me. You just need to say, Nomsa, this is my situation, what is going on, I need to deal with it. And for me, as a Nkositalkshows person, I need to understand, because I need you healthy. I need you to actually be happy. And if on that day you are not happy, and I'm telling you, why are you telling me last minute? It is life. So I have to try means that, okay, if I have to go to Nkositalkshows and do my life by myself, it has to be that way, not you having to feel that I have to. And I hope your characters, you're not like that, because I like people who are true, to say, I have a problem, Nomsa, not to say I'm gonna do things for the sake of doing it. So thank you so much. Do you have anything you want to add, Amanda, on this one with how to set boundaries
Yes.
in healthy relationships?
Yeah, I really do. I think especially for people who are starting to date or who are out of a relationship and beginning to date, because so many people will just get into relationship because they're lonely, or because they want somebody else in their life, and they're not really living their true values when they start to get into those relationships. And so there's a couple books actually on boundaries. One is called Boundaries. There's one called Boundaries in Marriage, and there's one called Boundaries in Dating. That I haven't read them all, but I have done a bit of research into them. And we really need to be clear on what it is that we want. Otherwise, we're going to repeat those same patterns over and over again. And I think it's really important too to recognize what your boundaries are before you go into dating relationships, because then you can really clearly, when your boundaries start to be crossed, or when someone starts to kind of push those limits, you can easily say, okay, this isn't going to work, and not waste time on somebody who's not going to respect your boundaries, because your boundaries are what make you healthy and happy and allow you to feel whole. Whereas if you let somebody into your life and they break this boundary, and then they break this boundary, and they break this boundary, and then they slowly just keep breaking, and then they really will break you down into ruining your self-confidence and ruining who you thought you had become, because you're allowing somebody into your life who's just breaking these little boundaries. But if you are very clear on your boundaries, you can recognize those red flags right away, and you can say kindly, you've broken my boundaries, and unfortunately this just isn't going to work. And that is okay, right? I've learned something, you can learn something, we can both move on from this in a happy and healing way. Because when you are able to heal and set boundaries for yourself and walk away from an unhealthy relationship, you have grown unsurmountably. You have chosen yourself over being in a relationship just to have somebody in your life. And I think that's really hugely important, because you need to choose you first. And then when you choose you first, you can go out into the world and be a more genuine person. Whereas if you keep allowing other people into your space that are breaking your boundaries, then you're not going to be your most authentic self, and you're not going to be the best version of yourself. And so I really think setting boundaries in relationships, especially at the beginning, before you even start dating, know what your boundaries are and know what you're okay with. Because then when those red flags show up, you can clearly say, this is not healthy for me and I'm going to move on, or I'm going to spend some more time alone so that I can continue to work on being the best version of myself and continue to set these boundaries for myself. And your boundaries may change too as you grow older. So when you're young, you may have boundaries where it's like, yeah, I just want to party and enjoy life. And then as you get older and you have children, your boundaries are going to change. Or even with your work situations change. I know one time I had someone asked me to put together, because I'm a teacher, and they were planning this party, and they had asked me to put together like all of these games for this party. And I was just like, I have a toddler, I'm in the middle of doing a master's, and I work full time. I'm sorry, but I do not have time for this. And that was a very clear boundary. They were not very happy with me, because they thought, oh yeah, she's a teacher, she can just throw together these games, no problem at all. But the reality of my life was I couldn't. I had nothing left to give. My whole world was consumed by my toddler, finishing my master's, and working full time. And so even though that person was not very happy with me for setting that boundary, there was no way that I could fulfill what she had asked. So I had to set the boundary. And people don't understand that they can't please everyone. You can't go out into the world and always make everybody happy. Even as a teacher in my classroom, even when I'm teaching, I can't make every student in my class happy. It's impossible, because I have to teach the curriculum. And my boundary is that I have to do my job and teach the curriculum, but there are times and space where I can make it fun and hopefully let everyone enjoy. But also, you just have to make sure that you're following your boundaries and what it is that you can take on at that time as well. So maybe at a different point in time, I would have been able to say, yeah, sure, I can make up those games for you. But at that point in my life, my boundary was no, I cannot take a single thing more on. I'm at my capacity. And I think that's something that you really have to recognize too, is when are you at your capacity? And that's another space where you really need to think about, what boundaries do I need to set so that I can take care of me?
I agree with you when you say you can't please everyone. Basically, I don't think a human being can actually go around and pleasing people, but some people seems to think that they can do it, but you can't. That is the truth that I've learned the hard way, that I can't please everyone. And sometimes when people asking me to do something, I have to simply say I can't do it. And also people have to realize that when you say you can't, it doesn't mean you're a bad person. Actually, a good person is somebody who tells you the truth, that yes, I can't do this, unless and then someone who will do it and then go behind your back and start saying I'm doing this for her and things like that. So I always prefer somebody who is upfront and say I can't do it. And mostly when it comes to business, I always separate business with family. I prefer to pay somebody. When it comes to business, I actually prefer to spend money. I know that I'm separating my relationship with my family, and I prefer to approach a stranger to say, hey, could you please help with this? I always do that. I've always been like that, to separate my business. And even with love, I always tell people that you need to have boundaries. When you meet somebody, from the beginning, they need to understand the things that you can tolerate as a human being and the things that you can't. And also, when you express your desires, people will understand. But some people, when they enter a relationship, they expect the other person to be a sidekick, but they can't. But if you, like you say, the boundaries have to be upfront, then everyone will know what they are putting themselves into, and they will keep respecting those boundaries. Carolanne, so what do you do if your boundaries aren't respected? How would you go about and evaluate them?
It's a good question. I think something came into my mind as Amanda was saying about not letting people in who don't respect your boundaries. And actually what came to mind is that actually it's, for me, these people have come to show you what your boundary is. It's like there's a test, because as I said, I didn't always know what my boundaries were. And it was something that was like, what is that, you know? And so I believe that people do come to test your boundaries to help you to find out, what is my boundary? And so if you start to realize that someone has come in who you're not feeling comfortable with, then explore that. What is it that's not comfortable? And I remember many years ago, there was this one person who I got on really well with. We used to have a great time, but I also realized that I was looking to her to tell me what to do or to support me. And there was one time when she said to me, I don't want you to go to that meeting again. There was a particular meeting that I used to go to, and I'd chosen to. I was exploring something at that time. She said, I don't like what they stand for. I don't want you to go to that meeting again. And I want you to promise you're not going to go. And I was like, I couldn't do that. And I went to that meeting. And I'm so glad I did, because I was actually at that meeting able to see for myself, this isn't where I want to be anymore. I learned for myself that what they stood for, that was fine. That was, you know, it's okay for them, but it wasn't for me. And I was able to then say, look, this meeting isn't for me. I don't want to come anymore. And that was fine. And if I'd listened to her, I wouldn't have gone to that meeting. I wouldn't have got that learning. So it is recognizing where to sort of say, well, no, I'm not going to be told what to do or promise that. I've got my own learning to do. But a bit later on, I was on another conversation with her, and she was really getting quite, a bit irate with me, and I suddenly went, you can't control me anymore. That's what you don't like. Because I was finding my own feet. I was making my own decisions, and she didn't like that. And that's when I realized that I didn't need her to be telling me what to do. I could make my own choices. So for that, I'm really grateful, because she woke me up to that learning. And then it's just like somehow things just moved apart. She moved away, never seen her again, or even been in touch. So for me, I think it's being able to sit with these people that come in and that do test your boundary, because it is a way for you to start recognizing what that boundary is that they're pushing, that maybe you didn't realize you hadn't put in place, and for you to then do something about it and be able to go, no, this is my boundary. But it is actually finding that voice to and be able to stand up for yourself. So again, for me, it's that going in, it's doing that inner work. And that's what I keep saying all the time. It's and it is that, what is the lesson that's here for me to learn? Because from that you grow stronger, and therefore when you meet other people, you've got that boundary. It's already in place and it emanates from you. You don't really need to say a lot, because there's something in the way you're being that they just get it, you know? So it's all about who you're being and really getting clear on that. Yeah.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Carol. And I like it when you say, actually, you have to make a choice. I went to this business event and twice. So I met these amazing women, and I was sitting between all of them, in the middle of them. And after we finished, because I just talked to everyone, and we swapped the numbers, and I went for coffee for this one, and I went for coffee with that one. And this one, he was started saying, I can't stand her. So I just chose actually not to listen, because those are the principles that I've put in place, that I shouldn't judge anyone. I need to get to know people myself and then make a decision. So I decided, okay, I'm going to get to know both of you then. I'm going to get to know both of you. If you guys are not good for me, my tribe, then I'm going to drop you guys. So I decided to get to know them. And guess what? They are both good, but they don't know. They are both good. They have helped me. This one has helped me with my business, marketing, and everything for free. Like if I need free marketing, if I need somebody to push me to do things that I should be doing, she helps me. And this one as well, she does help me. But I choose, when I meet them as individual, I choose not to listen to whatever they are wobbling on about, because they are fighting for something that doesn't exist. It's not that. When you go to a business event, sometimes you have to have a clarity of why you are there. So that's why I always do that. I'm here for business. I want to build my business, and I'm going to need every mind that can help me to build my business. And I've built a good relationship with these two amazing women, and they are both amazing. And when they talk about each other, I just tell them off, and I just like, let's focus on one. We are here for coffee, because we're here for coffee to work out on how we can improve our businesses. So we focus on that. So thank you so much for that. Those are my boundaries, strong principles that I've put in place, that if you want to get to NOMSA, you're going to have to come using NOMSA, not people's names. So those are my principles, that you want to get to know me, the real me, not coming in with the gossip. So that is really good. Anything you want to add, Amanda?
How do I set a boundary with this cat to get off the table? No, I think that's really important. I think it's really important to set boundaries in friendships, especially when some friends don't get along. And that's something that I've been trying to work really hard with my students on, but also with my daughter as well, because she has two wonderful, amazing friends. She has all of her friends are amazing, but this group doesn't like this group. And I'm like, you're allowed. And so it's like, I'm like, you're allowed to be friends with all of them, and you need to stand up and say that. And she does, but it doesn't make the one group very happy, because she's like, no, I'm allowed to be friends with everybody, and I like them. They are great people, and you can't talk bad about them. And I think that's something we really need to teach children as well, because it's not something, when they see adults not being kind or talking behind people's back, or not being positive influences, especially as women, I think we need to talk each other up, not put each other down, because there are so many amazing people out there. Then we need to cheer on those people who are striving and achieving and doing amazing things and working while juggling a family and not look down on them and say, oh, this person this or this person that. You need to say, like, bring up those positives. Everybody's got negatives. Everyone has things that you could totally bash, but that's not a good thing to do, because we want to vibrate at a higher frequency and we want to lift ourselves up. And when we allow people who bring that negativity into our life, it brings down our frequency and it brings down our energy levels as well. If you've ever walked into a room when people are gossiping, you can feel the energy almost as soon as you walk into that space. And what I try to do in my life is make sure that I bring in positive energy. And if people are speaking poorly about someone, then I just say that I don't want to be part of this. And I think that's a good boundary for people to have, especially when people are gossiping, or because you want to set a space where you're aiming for a positive and aiming to be a higher version of yourself. And that is starting to set boundaries and learning to set boundaries. And learning to set boundaries isn't something that comes easy. It can be really, really tough, because people aren't going to like it. With sometimes some people who've done the work and who are learning to set boundaries too will start to understand, oh yeah, I understand why they set this boundary. But some people will just look at it as demands, and that you're being completely unreasonable when really you're not. And I worked really hard with my psychologist to set boundaries with people, because it is something that doesn't come naturally to me, and it is something that I need support with. Because when I set that boundary and people say, oh, you're just being demanding, or you're just being this, I go back to my psychologist and I say, so this is what happened. And then they say, and I'm like, am I being crazy? And they say, no, you're setting a clear, healthy boundary. They're just not ready to hear it yet. And so I think if you are struggling with people and you are struggling with setting boundaries, getting professional help is the very first step, because it will allow you to recognize when you are setting a clear boundary, even when the people who you're setting that boundary with lash back out at you, because then you start to second guess yourself. And when you have professional support for setting boundaries, it just gives you so much more self-confidence in knowing that you are doing the right thing for you.
Thank you so much, Amanda. So before we leave, guys, tomorrow we have Reality 7 at Nkositalkshows. They'll be joining us tomorrow. For those who have children who wants to get into entertainment industry, so just watch. The ideas, will be asking them questions how they made it, because they are big in South Africa. They are gospel a cappella singers, and they are big. They've made it. They've been running for a very, very long time. So we will have them in the house. So if you feel that you want to, or simply you are starting your business, or you are into business, you are doing something and you want to know basically how to become successful, because the people you hang out with, I was talking about yesterday that I listened to Danny audio yesterday. He was saying, show me your friends you hang out with, then I will tell you your future. So basically, the people who you hang out with, those people, they determine how your life is going to be. So you become those people. We're talking about setting up boundaries. So you can't, if you want to succeed in life, you can't hang out with people feeling sorry club. Feeling sorry club is those when you have problems, they make you feel better instead of telling you to get up and get some professional help and get on with things, because problems, whether you hide or you don't, they will always come and find you. So you might as well get on with it. So we're going to have them in the house. We're going to be asking them questions. And if you guys have any questions, I know there are so many children who want to get into entertainment industry, and entertainment industry is a mean industry, because even if you have a talent, it doesn't mean that you can make it. You have to believe in that talent yourself, because you cannot let anyone affirm that you are good at this. You let you and your God affirm whoever you believe in, your creator, whether you believe in the universe. So you have to let the universe and you say you can do this. You can believe whatever you believe. You can work on it. I can't say you can become who you want to be because I will be telling you a lie. You become who you believe you can be. So you can work on that. It requires hard work. It requires you falling down. It requires you having to find friends, a tribe, like a business tribe. I'm surrounded by speakers that when I fall down, when I don't feel good, they can actually give me comfort, and not to make me get comfortable and feel sorry for myself. They can just say, Nomsa, if this is not working, why don't you do this? So that's what life is about. You have to surround yourself with good people. You want to be a millionaire, surround yourself with people that think like you. If you want to get married, surround yourself with people who think like you. You want to get that promotion, surround yourself with people that want that promotion. They want you to get that promotion. If you want to get to Nkositalkshows, surround yourself with people that believe in you to get into Nkositalkshows and just lead with your own voice and help the community lead with their own voice. So that's what we'll be talking about tomorrow. So you can join us. Anything, Carolanne, you would like to leave with our audience?
Yes, I think in line with what we're talking about is how to set boundaries for a healthier you. I think what's important to realize is if you don't recognize your boundary and you don't reinforce it, and others then disrespect you, they push those boundaries and they step right over them, that's where it gets stored in the body because it's uncomfortable. It's emotion that's not healthy, it's uncomfortable, and that's where you then start getting ill because your body is not at ease with itself. Disease can then pop in. Dis-ease. Your body is not at ease with itself, and so this is where you get ill. So just recognize the impact of not recognizing your boundaries, not reinforcing them, because by recognizing them, by reinforcing them, you can then create a healthier you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Amanda. I know you've got to go. Anything you want to leave with our audience?
I just wanted to come back to what you said, Nomsa, about surrounding yourself with people. I think that's probably, if you're wanting to change your life and to start setting boundaries, is to really take a look at the 5 closest people to you, because you are a combination of those 5 closest people. And if you're not setting, and if they're not striving to be what you want to become, or they're not helping you along your path, then you really are not setting clear boundaries with the people that you're surrounding yourself with. So you may need to say, you know what, every Thursday I'm going to spend an hour and I'm going to focus on reaching my goals, or I'm going to focus half an hour every day on doing marketing for my business, or I'm going to focus on reaching out and connecting with people who are going to help me grow. Because once you start to do that, those people who were your 5 closest people when you weren't on your growth path, they're not going to like it. And you're going to change, and you're going to attract a new tribe of people who are going to help you on your growth path. And I think that is really a huge empowering thing.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, ladies, for today. We really appreciate you, and those who are watching us, thank you so much. We'll see you tomorrow, everyone. Live with grace. Remember, we have Reality 7 tomorrow. Join us, please. Thank you.